What's stealing your podcast intros? I'm Ian, and this is Dancing with the Bards, the podcast where Will, Brooke, and I talk about board games and stuff. Unfortunately, due to a nasal tragedy, the role of Will will be played by Chris today.
Howdy.
Returning to the guest chair this week is Steven. Welcome, Steven. It's glad to have you on again.
It's glad to... Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me.
The audio quality might be a bit off for this episode. We're in the process of moving our recording studio, so we've gone back to basics.
I'll definitely be trying my best.
And we're getting into the spirit of the spooky season with our game this month, One Night Ultimate Werewolf. Now, before I get into the details of the game, has anyone here not played some variation of Werewolf or Mafia before today?
That's a hard question to answer the way it was phrased.
I've played.
I've played.
I have also played.
I think everyone has. It's ubiquitous. I said that earlier and it made me feel smart. We've all played something like this. I know, right?
Word of the day calendar really paying off.
Yeah, just see her suit on that shelf being knocked off.
The worst part is you should have seen me. I put my finger up in the air like, aha, I got this. Ubiquitous.
Does anyone remember the first time they played a variation of this game?
I do.
My first was One Night Ultimate Werewolf, so I remember it vividly because it was 13 of us crammed in one of the rooms at our college, all art students, all super tired. We literally just needed something to break the tension because we were about to kill each other over projects. Production processing will do that to you.
So you played a game about killing people instead of actually killing people.
Yeah, that's kind of what we did. Couldn't afford drugs. Art supplies cost too much. Gotta do this.
The real reason artists are poor.
Yes, art supplies. It was $8 a board. Like one piece of paper was $8, and you mess them up constantly. So you use like 4 of them per.
Yeah, there's got to be like a comic out there that just details art cost, last pain. Hey, I'll pay you an exposure.
Yeah.
Steven, you said you remember your first time playing?
Absolutely. This was when I was backpacking in New Mexico, actually. The summer between my freshman and sophomore years of high school. And no, I won't tell you what year that was. You don't get to know how old I am. Crotchety old man that I am. But yeah, the entire group of us sat around a campfire playing Mafia. I'd never played it before. We had no materials whatsoever. It was great.
My first encounter with this is also takes place in the woods.
The place the Mafia live.
Yeah, apparently. We played Mafia during Boy Scouts all the time because it required nothing to do. You didn't need anything but like pieces of paper to determine like the roles and stuff.
For mine, it was... Oh, God. It's been so long since I actually first played it, so I only barely remember it. But it was... I'm not sure if you guys knew about the Arts and Ideas Festival in New Haven.
No.
Beans. It was basically just like where various artists and like certain school choirs would go to like perform and do stuff. And so I went there as one of the singers, and like before our performance, we played a game of Werewolf. Technically speaking, I think it was Mafia. And I think I got killed at the start, and so I'd never actually learned how to play.
That's how it goes.
Also, let's circle back. You were a choir boy?
I was, sort of, kind of. And
that's a bad thing?
No, we have another choir boy here.
In middle school, and then towards... Actually, you know what? At the beginning of middle school, and then towards the end of middle school was when I was in choir. After I hit high school, it was just all solo indie stuff for me, you know.
This is just more Chris lore for me that I needed. Thank you.
That's why I'm the audio producer.
Yeah, I mean, for my middle school, you either had to play an instrument or you were in choir. You didn't get a choice.
Oh, I had to learn Gregorian chant to get out of 8th grade. It was a requirement for my diploma. But
Catholic schools are weird, man.
Yeah.
I also had to know how to dance Soldier Boy.
Ooh,
tell us. Also a requirement.
I'm trying to think back to my middle school. I think that there were like 4 different options for music in middle school. We had choir, we had band, we had orchestra. At least I'm pretty sure we had an orchestra because those string players had to go somewhere, right?
Fair.
And we had this thing called music appreciation, which involved creating no music and just like sitting in a room and listening to Led Zeppelin and talking about it or something.
Hey, that sounds good to me.
great.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in both choir
It's
and
better than
band, so it's
Gregorian
not like
chant.
I didn't have time to appreciate music, as it were, but I guess some people did.
Again, better than Gregorian chant.
I wouldn't have survived Catholic school.
I didn't.
No one gets out alive.
No one comes out sane.
So we're going to talk probably more. We're probably going to mention things like Mafia and what was the town of Salem?
Yeah, Town of Salem.
We'll probably mention a bunch of those a lot throughout this, but for the most part, we're going to be focusing on the actual game, One Night Ultimate Werewolf itself. But I did want to throw out a really cool fact I found out when I was kind of doing research for all this about Mafia.
This is Ian looking for that fact.
This is Ian's trying to figure out where I'm going to start this.
Okay.
So the concept for Mafia, which was the precursor to Werewolf, it just kind of got a different name in the 90s, was created in Moscow towards the end of the Cold War, 1986, by Dmitry Davidoff as a kind of experiment and activity for the high school class he taught
Okay.
for psychology.
Let's hope he's not problematic in other cases.
Look, you're right. I definitely did not research that, and it could be, but this is literally just giving the man credit for this one thing.
No, he can take this, but I don't want to know anything else about him.
Yeah, that's probably for the best. We'll keep it that way.
Okay, I will also say, you'll be referencing those other games. I have only ever played One Night Ultimate Werewolf, so I have no other references for this style, other than like Coup, which isn't very close.
It is not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was talking to Chris on the way here about the various names for this game, and one of the ones that we used to play at Denny's was Secret Hitler, which
I did play that once.
Which it can't be any less appropriate than whatever Dmitry Davidoff did, I hope.
Don't tempt fate.
You're right.
I'm hoping we get an email about this. My goal is that we get emails.
Yeah, just one, please.
Just one.
Remember we were talking
Come
about
say
email
hi.
being the tool of the old earlier before we turned on the
Okay,
stream?
everyone here but Chris is the old.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you don't want Discord messages or something like that?
I mean, yeah, you can always do that.
I will also add, every and that I hear gives me physical pain because I have to cut them out meticulously.
Well, I'll speak slowly and try to avoid extraneous noise.
Oh no, don't worry about it. I play Overwatch while I'm editing, so it's perfectly fine.
Cool.
So going into the details for the game, One Night Ultimate Werewolf is published in 2014 by Bezier Games and was designed by Ted Alspech and Akihasa Okui. And I am very sorry if I butchered those.
You did.
I probably did.
Tremendously.
It was a try.
But
He
I'm
did
not-
his best.
I'm not even going to attempt them, so...
This hidden
Good.
role game adds to the original by giving roles to the villagers, not just the werewolf, and really only covers the first turn of the actual game of werewolf / mafia / pick your poison. The game goes from 3 to 10 players, and the way to win is to find the werewolf before the next day. Pretty much any scenario in which you uncover the werewolf is a win for the villagers. If the werewolf isn't found, or if none of the werewolves are found, the werewolves win. I should also say we're going to be using a slightly different rubric for this episode, because this is technically a party game, so we've never actually broken out the party game rubric before.
Yes, party games are my favorite. We're going to do this more.
Brooke, would you like to go over the party game rubric?
Yes. Okay, so it's also fun with some of the wording because I cannot be tamed. So we have the normal things like number of players, comprehension, but then we get into paraphernalia, which is what you need to actually play the game. So is there too many pieces for you to take it around? Are you having to add pieces of your own into this? If it's a drinking game, do you need to supply the beer, which is always yes. But, you know, it's what do you need outside of what it's in the box, and is there too much in the box? For gameplay, we got setup, that's normal. Rate of play, normal. Difficulty curve, that's the only thing that's kind of different. For difficulty curve, it's about is it easy to pick up, and can you strategize after that? So is there a way to keep it being fun while you're learning and growing as a player? Customization we have in the other one too, right? Did we?
Not technically. We call it extras. Or, well, customization is player made content.
Yeah, so it's similar, but it also it's the house rules. Mm-hmm. Can you make a house rule for this? For personals, I believe that's all the same, but we do not have the sliding scales on this, just because party games are very derivative.
All the scores mentioned, so enjoyment, recommendation, replay value are the keys for personal. The one difference is the would you buy this yourself, which is all these so far have been a 4-point score because we have to reach number 42. And you might realize that if you do the math in your head, that doesn't actually equal 42. Would you buy this yourself is only a 2-point.
So it's either no, if it's on sale, or yes, I'm going to buy this.
Yeah.
And exactly. That's 0 points, 1 point, and 2 points, respectively.
Yes.
Good old Likert scales.
Woo. And then we add to the meaning of life, and we add comments at the end.
Exactly.
So it's very close to the other one, just with like one tweak per category.
We try to edit these to make or change these around for different styles of games to make sure it's fair for everything.
Yeah, because if you put this up to like a TTRPG, it's not going to compare.
The kind of thing that we almost did for Trial by Trolley.
Yes. Yeah. We tried it with Trial by Trolley, and then we realized this isn't working.
And then we also realized we were recording by a highway, and that was taboo.
Yes. There was a lot of things wrong with that setup. It's a good thing it's staying in the vaults.
Yes.
The good pilot episodes.
It's not good.
We've covered one of them. We did escape Jurassic Park.
Yeah, we redid
at some
that
point
one.
We'll get Trial by Trolley, which we can use the party game scale for.
Technically, pilots are only the ones that make it past the editor.
That's true.
Yeah.
The rest are trash.
The rest are
so our pilot
secret
would be
episodes.
10 Candles.
Yes.
Yes.
That was our first, was 10 Candles, which I think we should revisit at some point.
That'll be nice.
Because that was before the TTRPG papers.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah. Circling around, I'm going to say your least favorite thing. How do we feel about number of players?
I give it a 3 for number of players. I don't think it's quite deserving of a 4 because it starts off at 3 to 10, and I feel like with 3 people, no.
Yeah, it was hard at 4.
Yeah.
I was dancing for most of it to try and like make noise so no one knew what was going on.
You know, it worked.
Yeah, no, I'm very distracting as a human being.
But everyone has their eyes closed, Brooke, so how do they know you're dancing?
I'm on the same couch.
That's me rubbing my hands together.
Actually, to be fair, I couldn't really hear Brooke. I could feel the couch moving, which was like, if Brooke is always moving, then I won't know if she's actually doing other important things while she's moving.
Yeah, I rubbed my hands together because I'm dry as all get out and danced.
Yep. That definitely works better when it's not easy to like hear what other players are doing. But then again, that's not really relevant to number of players, is it?
Sorry.
I mean, I think with the more players you have, the more kind of ambient noise everyone makes. So it's a little bit easier to kind of slip into that if you're trying to do your action stealthily. I personally gave it a 4 because I actually think that with 3 players, you can still get some interesting kind of scenarios, especially more scenarios where you have no werewolves, but you just have to figure that out, which we didn't have here because I guess the more players you have, the more likelihood there is to have multiple werewolves. But I think that would be still kind of fun because everyone would be suspecting each other and no one would actually be suspicious.
I agree now that you mention it. Thinking about it, given that there are always 3 unused roles with only 3 players, that means that literally half the roles don't get used. It's much harder to figure out exactly what's in the game that way. Mm-hmm. But I do see where Ian's coming from as well. I personally gave it a 4 because I see this as a game that can, in fact, accommodate a very broad range of number of players. Yes, I think that it's better with more players. However, that doesn't mean that it didn't work with only 4. Mm-hmm. And it would probably... Brooke, you said you played this at first with like 13 people?
Yes, but I gave it a 3 because even at 10, it gets a little wild. And we didn't... Okay, so there is a phone app. We did not play with the phone app, so someone was the announcer the whole time. So
I have really a lot to say on the phone app, so I can't wait for paraphernalia.
Yes. But I will go with what Ian said. Like, at the limits of what it publishes as the required number of players, it doesn't work quite as well as it does in the middle. Again, I personally gave it a 4 because it can be played. It's not as restrictive, but no, definitely see docking some points there for it.
I will also note that, at least according to the instructions for Daybreak, which is the expansion that Brooke has, we didn't play with it as much. Or we had some rules, but
we put in a 1 per round.
Yeah.
We tried a different.
They actually recommend that if it's your first time playing, you play with 3 people, and they tell you what rules to put out and the easiest way to go about that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think 4 is probably a little better, but they say, yeah, do it with 3 people and follow this exact play-by-play so you can get a feel for it, which is, that's helpful for certain groups. And
if you don't have the magic app.
Yeah. Especially with the Daybreak one, you have like 3 different kinds of werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of 3 different kinds of werewolf, comprehension.
I don't think anyone can memorize this game personally. I gave it a 1.5 because of that. Just because, like, some of the Chris, don't do this just to prove me wrong. He's currently like posing like, I can definitely do this.
Well, what Chris is implying, I am also thinking too, but
I think that's not as important to the game. Like, I think that, yes, it makes it harder when you're starting out. Like, you wanted to know how every single one worked.
It is in my nature.
Yes, which is great. But this game does not lean to that very well.
I actually gave it a 2 for comprehension as well. And part of that was watching Steven try to figure everything out in the rules. I'm like, because you were right. Like, you go through some of these and some of them seem counterintuitive. Like the paranormal investigator, we still never really quite figured out exactly how that works.
That's going to be a home roll.
We did come up with a good interpretation, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Or Chris did. I think Chris can be credited with that one.
I mean, I just Googled the thing and I figured it was probably our best thing.
Yeah, you stole it, but you stole it.
Yeah. I will also note the wording in the book is quite particular with whenever a swap takes place. And Paranormal Investigator didn't mention a swap, which is, I think, one of the reasons why we settled on that.
When we somehow get into gameplay, I would love to talk about the swapping, because I think that's one thing that really sets this apart from your generic variety werewolf or mafia.
Yeah.
One of 2 things, really. But I would agree with it, 2. I think that originally I was thinking of giving it a 3, but then I remembered all the time that I spent reading this and going, what the heck is this? So it's a bit much to simply pick up. Once you get a hang of it, it's easy. But just getting there, not so easy.
I snuck in with a 4 because you guys don't know this about me, but I have literally thousands of hours on Town of Salem, so it's very easy for me to equate some of the roles with some of the roles in that, because Town of Salem was based off of Mafia/werewolf-esque games.
I will say Mafia is pretty much the blueprint for a lot of modern hidden role games, which is kind of why I enjoyed doing the research on this, because I like hidden role games a lot. They're one of my favorite kinds of games.
Yeah, we're probably going to go over Mafia, and now that we know about it, what is it called?
Town of Salem.
Town of Salem.
It's available on the internet.
It's a video game, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's board game based, we could probably sneak it in at some point just to round out your favorite game.
It's a good thing to reference.
Oh, yeah.
And for people here that may not play board games, which is what we're tailored to.
Yeah, I don't think they're listening.
Yeah. That's okay. I like to pretend.
You never know. I've never played a single board game, but I love listening to this podcast talk about those things that I could never do. There could be people like that. You don't know.
My hope for this podcast is that someone has to look into whether they want to get a game or not, or learn about it, and it pops up on their search history or their search bar.
You're not paying Google.
Yeah, but
yes.
you don't get to abuse the algorithm yet.
But I will, if we're done on comprehension. For the same reason that I gave it a comprehension score of 2, I gave it a paraphernalia score of 4. And it's the app. The app does a lot of heavy lifting for this game.
It does.
If it weren't for that app, and I wrote this in my comments too, I would have given this a lot lower score. Because having to have someone, first of all, you'd have to have someone who's basically in charge of managing everything. You'd have to have people checking through what each role does as they pull it, because no one's going to memorize it the first, second, third, fifth time they do this. It gives timing. It has a description for what you do on your turn. It talks you through the entire thing, and if we didn't use it, we would have struggled a lot more through this.
Well, you would have if you didn't have someone who solely loves being the announcer.
Rules officiator.
Yes. I will say, though, I did not mark up my copy, but the copy we used at WestCon did have it written on the cards. So someone went in with their fine liner pen in between art classes and wrote out the roles on it. So you can kind of like sneak it back up and check what you needed to do. And I did always announce what you were supposed to do anyway. I loved the app. I gave it a 4, but it did take away my favorite job, which meant that I didn't have to argue with people and I got to just watch the chaos unfold as I just told them what to do. So I do kind of miss that. But the app is extremely helpful.
I gave it a 3 personally, not because I saw any glaring oversights, but just because it didn't strike me as, wow, this couldn't be improved. I felt like there were areas where this could have been improved a little bit. Brooke, you just pointed out one of them. If the role descriptions were also on the cards, that would definitely help with the comprehension aspect of the game. And they're printed on really nice cardstock. I thought that the actual physical cards were pretty good as well. The app adds quite a bit, although I'm a little bit less, this is so much better than a person. I think it just replaces a person.
Oh, yeah.
But as a party game, if you don't have somebody who wants to stand there and be the one who officiates, it's great to be able to play without that. So I think that the app does add a lot, and the fact that it's free is a huge bonus.
And it gives everyone a chance to play.
I know Materials isn't on this list, but I'm going to do it anyway.
I just kind of threw that into Paraphernalia.
If you weren't, I was going to.
Okay. My only gripe, the card quality is perfect for what it is. It's a very thick cardboard, so you're able to pick it up as quietly as possible. They are not waterproof, though, and as a party game, I usually want my party games to be waterproof just because of our friend group and alcohol.
Yeah, I think all of us played this in or around college, except Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's one thing I know about college students, it's that they're messy.
Lots of liquids.
Yes.
All kinds.
We had a game club. We got together to specifically play Werewolf. So there wasn't actually that much mess.
Fair.
However, we were weirdos. So
Yeah. So I that's the only gripe I have is that it's not waterproof, but everything else about the stuff it gives you is amazing. And as someone who's not techie, the app is very intuitive. And you could probably fudge not having the cards having that app, which is nice.
very well. Setup?
3. I give this a 3 for setup. I feel like it was a little messy with the picking out the cards and stuff. I feel like there's some room for improvement, but overall, there's not really a lot to complain about.
I gave it a 2.5. My biggest gripe with it is it tells you the basics. Like it in the rules, it says, please pick out the robber, this, that, the other thing. And it gives you the choice of like one villager. I'd rather them just tell me the amount of werewolves I needed and let me choose after that. The fact that you have to have a seer every time just kind of bugs me. We house ruled it that you didn't have to do that, but the setup says you do.
Interesting. I gave it a 3 for setup. It was one of those things where I think that the biggest issue is deciding what roles go into the game. And I wasn't aware that it actually provided as much guidance as it did in that regard.
Yeah.
Which, for first-time players, I think that would be very helpful when you don't have a lot of knowledge to build off of. And because, the nature of any game is you can kind of do whatever you want, then once you get the hang of it, you can literally do whatever the heck you want.
Yes.
Just the only real hassle is juggling all the cards and the tokens together, which isn't really that much of a hassle. It could be easier, I guess. I gave it a 3.
I'm over here with a 4 again.
You really liked this.
I did. I like a lot of hidden role games, and Werewolf, or I guess One Night Ultimate Werewolf, I should specify, does hit that niche of the elements that I enjoy about it. Namely, that it's kind of like, what is it? Not drag and drop, but like pick up and put down, in the sense that you don't really have to have a bunch. You don't have to have a board. You could literally just have like the cards laying on the like on the ground in a forest, if you really didn't have anywhere else to play, and just play the game without any additional setup. even in the sense of like your the cards or the roles that you actually have in the game, aside from what the game actually says, it's still serviceable as long as there's at least like one werewolf card amongst them for you to have fun with the game without even knowing most of the rules. We could have probably just not even known what any of the roles did and just came up with them as they came up and still had a good time with it.
I can speak for myself saying that would make me anxious.
Once my group did Oops, All Werewolves, and it was all werewolves and one villager.
And the werewolves had to vote out the villager.
Yes, and the villager just had to try and not be seen.
I would love to ask for more details on how that works at all.
Terribly.
Okay,
Terribly.
It seems to work
But it
about
was
as
a
well as I
fun
expect.
concept.
A thought did occur to me as you guys were talking. One thing that would be cool for setup for this is if they had recommendations for what cards to use for certain numbers of players, like fun combinations. Did you already say that?
So they don't have like what combos work well together. They do give a basic list and scaling for how many cards you should add.
Yeah, I
but
did
they
see
don't
that.
have like, it'd be fun if you had a Tanner and a private eye or PI, the paranormal investigator.
Yeah.
They don't tell you that. But that would be cool, definitely. I'm sure there's somewhere on the internet that has that whole list.
Probably recommended list, yeah. But they
It's a
definitely have
popular
room
game.
on those fold-out sheets. They could have done it.
Yeah, this is true. Instead of the poster I have about deception and not being an actual werewolf.
I love how it's in meme format.
It
Right.
is. It's very. I got this in 2018, I think, and it's very 2018.
That's why it's one of the inspiration posters.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I mean, the other side is just advertisements for their product, so it's not like it's wasted space.
No, it's
for
all the expansions.
Oh, there are several.
Yes.
We can get to that for later in replay value.
Customizations, maybe?
Maybe customizations.
Yeah, true.
I mean, technically it would counter paraphernalia, but I
That's
feel
true.
like it got good scores all around for paraphernalia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the right amount of expansions, and they work on their own. They also you don't have to add them in. They work. I don't even know what I'm saying. They're good.
I can explain it. So
Thank
there are 5 total expansions. There's Daybreak, Alien, One Night Ultimate Alien, One Night Ultimate Superhero, One Night Ultimate Supervillain, and One Night Ultimate Vampire. The last 4 that I mentioned can work with either Daybreak and or One Night Ultimate Werewolf. Daybreak can work with One Night Ultimate Werewolf, and all those expansions can be played separately. The expansions go up to 7 players as opposed to 10.
Do adding expansions together likewise increase the number of possible players?
No. It still goes up to 10.
You know, if you get anyone past, again, 13 was rough. Like it 10's kind of the tops before you go like, who's doing what?
I mean, at that point, you need a
happening?
big table.
It would make
Depending
the
on
night
where you
phase
are.
excessively long.
Yes.
For
So
a game
it-
as quick as this, you don't want the night phase to be longer than the day phase.
Yeah, but it's also the nice thing about it is you forget who moved and what not happened, and then you have to like focus. This is a thing that kind of seems suspicious. So it
Oh yeah, when
Yeah.
we talk about gameplay, there's a good deal I could say about that.
Well, we can get to that because that kind of falls right into rate of play.
yep.
I feel like number of players would definitely affect something like that. But I did give it a 4 for rate of play. I felt that for what this game is, it moves very smoothly. The turns are literally counted out so that each person has a certain amount of time to do their thing. And there's no slowing things down with, stipulations or certain effects or things like that.
I gave it a 2. I always want it to be longer, and it never is long enough for me. That is,
I gave it a 4. It doesn't take very long, but I see this as like an hors d'oeuvre game where I could literally eat 3 dinners of hors d'oeuvres and be so full and happy.
yeah.
So it's just the thing. It doesn't last very long, but then you can do it again.
I just want more all the time.
Well, you could always play actual werewolf.
I guess, but I've never played actual werewolf. This is the only thing I know.
Oh, we'll get around to it eventually.
Yeah. Next Halloween.
Next Halloween. I also gave it a 4, mainly because, as Steven said, the day phase and the night phase feel almost the exact amount of time, at least with the number of players that we had. The day phase was probably a little shorter, considering it was only, I guess, In my memories, it feels like it was shorter compared to the actual conversation time that we had. And there's also a little bit of leeway in terms of how much time you have to talk. So if you had more players, you could probably add more time or leave it as 5 minutes and then let things get really hectic. But I think like we could probably have fit over the course of an hour, like 6 or 7 games of this.
Oh yeah.
Easily. I initially was skeptical when it said that the day phase is limited in a certain amount of time, but I came to really like that. In comparison to some games of Werewolf that I've played, where there really isn't a set limit on how much time you can spend in discussions, the game can really bog down during the day phase as people are just like glaring it across the table at each other and not really doing anything. So I definitely think that setting that limit is an important part of maintaining a entertaining pace of play.
Yeah.
Pigo.
What?
Difficulty curve. So going into the difficulty curve then, this is another area for me where the app is what gave me a higher score. If it weren't for the app, I would have given this a 1. I feel like someone who was playing this for the first time would be very confused. But if you have the app out, you just look at your card, put it back in the center, and do whatever the app tells you to do.
I would like to point out that what the app does is exactly the same thing that is printed in the materials section here.
That I'm supposed to say.
I did take that in consideration. What I would mean is if you have new players or someone is the leader, either they have it memorized of what each thing does, or they're looking through that constantly as they're trying to figure it out per turn.
With a group of only new players, I imagine the app is much easier to deal with than a person who isn't sure what they're doing.
Yeah. I gave it a 2 just because I kind of evened it out. I agree with you. It is hard the first time you're playing it, even as the omnipotent god, because you have to like pace things out properly while you're reading this little manuscript. And like you're supposed to give them enough time, but how much time, you don't know. The app takes away all the extra things. But I tried to make like a median of like if it was just involving the app, I would have given it a 4. If it was just the base game, I would have given it a 1. So I gave it kind of in the middle.
Shockingly, I also gave it a 2. Namely because I agree that this is also, again, sort of one of those situations where coming in with a lot of experience from a different but similar game, getting into what the roles that I was kind of familiar with and how those changed from the digital into the physical game was a little bit of a kind of jump in difficulty. But then once that got figured out, it was very, very easy. If I could like put this on a scalar menu, like the second time I would play this, it would probably be like a 3, maybe a 3.5.
Personally, I gave it a 4 for difficulty curve, and I'll explain why. Many of the issues that I think you guys are talking about right here are issues that I saw as a part of comprehension. That it's kind of a barrier to entry, so to speak, at just knowing what's going on. I thought that getting over that hump, the game is incredibly easy to play, and that is a point in its favor. However, based on the experience of people at the table and the number of roles available to mix and match, the scale is great. Like, you can get very different, nuanced games going once you get different connections of roles and connections of people who know what they're doing. So it provides a really great low difficulty to enter, but scaling strategies as you go through.
Okay.
Like that situation we described, or we were talking about sort of off mic, with 2 werewolves, a paranormal investigator, and just some town. And then now you have 3 werewolves versus 1 town. And that's kind of like a situation that would be very odd to find yourself in.
Hopefully those situations don't exist with maybe like 6 to 7 players, where it's probably that sweet spot for this game. We're just guessing at this point.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Playing this a lot, that's a nice number.
For a party game, that's a pretty good number too.
Yeah.
For customization, we did touch a little bit on the fact that you said that when you had played this, Stephen, was it You played at the college and they had written down the...
That's me.
That's Brooke. Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yep.
They had written down the actual rules to the roll on the card. That counts.
Yeah, and these cards, you can use Sharpies or any kind of an alcohol-based marker on it. It does have some wax coating on the outside, so you can't use like just anything.
Mm-hmm.
But we used, I think it was like Faber-Castell or something that we had from school, and it worked just fine.
Yeah, I had given it a 2 for customization. I feel like you have the potential to do things like adding your own roles or doing house rules or stuff. But for the most part, just the way that the game works, it's very strict about what order of the operations you follow. And adding a role into that mix, first of all, you can no longer use the app, which, in my opinion, is a saving grace for this.
Unless you have an experienced god.
But
We will continue making that point. And
Sorry,
Ian will
that's my
disagreeing.
favorite. I know, but that's my favorite role. I like watching chaos.
But you also have to be aware of how every single role interacts if you're going to do something like that, including expansions, if you're ever going to play with them.
This is true. I gave it a 3 because, again, I agree with you. There's not a lot you can do to change like how things are set up. But if you have extra copies and things, you could have 2 town drunks. You can have, which change the cards dramatically. You could have oops all werewolves and just struggle the whole time through. Like there's things that can happen.
I gave it a 2 for customization. I found it a little bit difficult to evaluate on this because I see this game itself as a customization of Mafia/Werewolf. When I used to play Werewolf, we had other roles that were similar to some of the roles here. So the idea of having new roles for villagers or werewolves was not new to me. These specific roles, some of them were very familiar, some of them were completely new, but there you can still mix and match roles here. I didn't see that as giving you a lot of flexibility. I should say that actually being able to mix and match roles gives you a lot of flexibility for replay value.
Yes.
But as for customizing the game itself, it's already a customization. How can you go much further than that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when it gives you kind of... It's almost like Werewolf with bumpers to me. Like, it's like when you go bowling and they put up those little side things. Like, you can still go off the rails, but, like, it takes more effort to try and go off the rails.
It's a really good analogy.
Your trial version of Werewolf has expired.
Yes.
Those are my favorite things to have at the bowling ring.
Do you get the little push, the walker, too, that you can, like, shoot it down?
Yeah, it's like a little triangle. It's great. I'm great at sports, everyone. I also gave it a 3, and I don't really have anything else to add that others haven't mentioned, but I do have one thing to mention in regards to something Ian said about adding potentially new roles. Those being that I'm fairly certain with other expansions, what they do is basically they see what a role in the core expansion or the core game does. And based on that, they'll give that role something relevant to that. So, for example, for something like the doppelganger or the robber, who usually take place at the very end after other people have done their swaps, or I guess technically speaking, the village idiot.
Okay, we're saying that because for some reason the app really hates the village idiot. It really hits that hard idiot.
Village idiot.
Yeah,
Yep.
the way that the app enunciates village idiot had us in tears.
Oh yeah, no, we broke down. Considering the drunk, they were very nice about, but the idiot man, that's the limits.
Poor Gumby.
But I think other expansions and potentially other customized roles could base off of that system as sort of a template to figure out when a certain action could take place. Or if you're basically going to make like an alternate to that role, then you can just have it take that role slot and remove that role from play.
Yep.
Fair enough.
I will say for the next section, it's a clean sweep for me, which is the first time it's happened in a long time.
It is not for me, but go ahead. You go first.
I love this game, so it's a 4 for me. I find this to be a great... I'm just going to put my comments here. So I find it to be a really good opener game. So like if you're waiting for people to show up for D&D or something, and you have like a couple people trickling in, these go so quickly, the rounds, that someone can easily come in, watch it for like a second or two, and jump right in. So it's great if you're trying to get the energy going, get the talking happening. It's a great icebreaker because you can't really be mad at anyone because no one's choosing to be the werewolf, and you might not be it by the end of it. You're really just arguing about what you were at the start. So it's truly, you can't be mad, and you're getting the juices flowing for a good game night.
I would like to say that I disagree on one point. There are people that can be mad at this, and there are people who will be mad at this, but that's a good thing, because now you know the people you don't want to associate with.
Restate, they should not be mad.
Mhm.
It's a bit of a screen as well as an enjoyable pastime.
Yes. A litmus skit test?
No, but I totally agree. I gave it a 3 for enjoyment. Why I didn't give it a 4? I don't know.
It just felt like a 3 to you?
It just felt like a 3 to me, where for me to get a 4 out of it, I have to look at it and say, this goes above and beyond.
Yeah.
I would say that this was nice. It was entertaining. It was filling. Would I do this again? Absolutely. And there are some customizations that this has made to the basic werewolf / Mafia that I think are really nice changes. That gameplay-wise, firstly, swapping roles. I was first kind of baffled by that, because I've never played a game where roles are swapped and you don't get to know what role you are the entire time. But then I realized during the day phase, it gives you a anchor, so to speak, of what to begin talking about. Where I know I'm on this team, and I know these other things because of my role. Now, how can I begin talking about that? That some other games of Werewolf I've played haven't given the players a lot of material to bite into when it comes to starting the game. And I really like how discussing all the things that we learned, and everybody learns something at night pretty much, is a good way to go. He's like, yeah, I'm a villager. Yeah, great, okay. 70% of us are villagers. 70% of us did nothing at night. Not so with this game. Everybody gets to do something.
Yeah. To be fair, that's also because I did take out the villager cards. I did not. That was one of the things we were supposed to play was a villager, and I said, hell nah. So we played all actual roles.
I would say that's still okay, as long as there's only 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah.
When it's too easy to just claim, yeah, I'm a villager, it's like, okay, nobody can contest that. And having a set number of each role helps with that. And another thing that I point out, this is different because most games of Werewolf I've played have been multiple rounds. Vote someone off at the end of every day. Werewolves kill somebody every night. The 1 round werewolf bit, I think, did wonders for the rate of play.
Yeah.
And definitely this means that no one's ever left out. You're not going to get voted off first round and then have to sit around for a half hour while everybody else finishes. So yeah, really distilling this down to the basic essence of the game, forcing it to take place within 5-minute day cycles, making sure that it only lasts for the 1 round. These were all excellent things that made for a more enjoyable experience, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's looking at me.
You can also just say Coolio and go for it.
No, I actually have a lot to say on this, and it's building off of a lot of things that Steven said too. I gave this a 3 for enjoyment. I almost gave it a 2. I definitely do prefer actual werewolf more than this. And I kind of had reservations as we were playing, especially the first round we actually played, where I'm like, I'm not really enjoying this too much. I'm used to having a little more control and trying to I guess the fact that the roles switched around is really what threw me off.
I definitely found that confusing at first.
Yeah, to be fair though, when you really think about it, it's what makes this a game. Because if you didn't have the roles switching around, it's only 1 turn, so everyone knows what they are pretty much at all times, and it's just a matter of he said, she said. But if you don't know what the role in front of you is, that's what gives this, what makes it work, even though it's only 1 turn of a classic werewolf game. That said, as I was playing, I'm like, I'm not really, I don't like this as much as werewolf, but I did have fun. I was smiling, I was laughing. We had a good time. So like, yeah, no, I'll give it a 3. It's definitely not something I normally would play, but I can't say I didn't enjoy it.
Enjoyment by force. I love it.
Pretty much, yeah.
I found that I always have more comments about stuff that you guys say as opposed to comments about my actual score. I gave it a 4 because it's social deduction game. I like social deduction games, and I like the idea of the role swapping around. But in regard, I'm just going to mention this, even though it's not related to my enjoyment. In regards to the villagers not being able to do anything, that's actually a safeguard for the werewolf, because it means the werewolf has at least the chance to claim that their role doesn't do anything. Much like in this game where they don't actually get to kill anyone, which is sort of one of the reasons why Werewolf is a little bit more difficult to play here, and in some variations of One Night Ultimate Werewolf, they kill at the end. So if they get like a seer or an investigative role, they can prevent them from speaking for that conversation. I think those only happen when you have more than a set number of players, so you can't just like instantly get voted out if there's 2 werewolves. But there are reasons why there are roles that don't actually do anything or don't effectively do something that allow you to have a little bit more leniency on certain roles. Like, I don't think there was a single time that the werewolf actually won when we played. Oh, no, there was the one time that Ian did it, and I knew because he did the little chair creak.
You didn't know? I can chair creak anytime I want to.
Not on the recording.
We did, in
Proving
fact,
a point.
scrub the first game because of that chair creak. So,
To be fair, most of my furniture are hand-me-down, so it's not the best for recording or playing sneaky games.
what is great about this recording environment is how quiet it is. What is not great about how quiet it is how easy it is to hear the chairs creak.
At least no one's playing with the mic springs.
Oh, God. That's fair. I will mention, though, the thing that's causing this great silence in this is the sheer amount of troll doll hair in the vicinity and these squishmallows on the other wall. There's a lot of absorbency here.
Oh, yeah.
We have many observers on high.
Yes. There's currently about 100 troll dolls aiming down at us.
The Squishmallows.
I encourage the audience to imagine that in the creepiest way possible.
Especially the one with boobs over there.
With a portrait of
its
Brooke.
legs are so
Eyes
long.
Don't follow you around the room.
There's also a comically large portrait on the other wall.
It is a very nice portrait.
I think it's an averagely sized portrait. Like that's a good sized
That's
portrait.
like, that comes up to my chest if I'm standing.
See, but I think comically sized, this is a whole tangent, but I think comically sized would be large enough for you to cut out the eyes and look through them as if they were your own eyes.
Okay, that's fair.
We're going art
Sorry.
museum level there. But back to the game.
No.
Do we recommend it?
Oh, yes. I also think this would be great for intro players, like little kids, other than having to explain what the town drunk is. I think
You could always leave it out.
you could. I think that this is a quickly enough paced game that you can get a couple rounds in before the attention span is gone.
The town silly, not the town drunk.
You can go ahead and change those letters because I'm not touching the cards.
I would recommend this game, definitely. I think that the big barrier to me is why would you get this game instead of regular vanilla Werewolf or Mafia? That is where kind of the barrier to entry for me was. Would I recommend playing those games? Sure. They're fun. They require next to nothing to play. All you really have to know are what roles you want. Now, this, I do think, has some rules that streamline the gameplay and make it more enjoyable than a regular game. Now, granted, I've only played it like today. So, would I always feel that way? I'm not certain. Perhaps I will run into things like, nah, this is on par, or maybe even a little worse. I don't know. But my experience today was really good. So, I gave it a 3 for recommendation. Like, yeah, it's a good game. If you have the opportunity to play it, play it. If you have the opportunity to get it, well, sure. But definitely not, and I saw Ian was nodding earlier, would you get this instead of just plain Werewolf? I'd say that you probably want to try both and then see for yourself.
I gave this a 2 for recommendation. I don't have anything against it, so like 50 kind of thing. But yeah, why would I pay $25 for this when I could play Werewolf or Mafia or Secret Hitler or anything else for free?
I mean, we also figured out you could probably do this for free too.
Online.
If you were willing to remake the materials, absolutely.
You could write it down on index cards. The app really helps out with the streamlining of it. I guarantee you, if you look it up, you can find the rulebook online somewhere.
I will say at least one of the points that I dock from this is just a personal thing.
Yeah, you do that a lot, though.
I try not to. I try to be.
These are your opinions.
Oh yeah,
you're allowed to be personal.
This is my opinion. Opinion is not. I don't know. I can't think of a lot of people I would recommend this to. At least not people that I personally know.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that I hang out with play very involved board games. They don't really look for time killers because anytime they're going to sit down for a board game, they plan on spending 3 hours.
If only that.
Yeah.
And see, most of my experience...
Until someone breaks out Titan.
I do a lot of party games. Like, that's my wheelhouse. That's my bread and butter. Is party games, getting people to talk together for just a little bit. I bring these on cruise ships. I bring these on all my travels. I am that person in the bar that's going to be like, hey, you want to come sit down and play? Like, I'm that nerd. So I don't sit down for 3 hours because my attention span won't allow it. And that's why I probably wouldn't do Werewolf, is because it takes a while.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a quick little bit in between conversations, waiting for people to show up, which is kind of my preferred style of playing.
Yeah, a game of Werewolf, I want to say like 30, 40 minutes, as long as everyone's pretty much on board.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Depends.
That definitely, this is the bite-sized version of that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a pretty good bite.
Yeah, and for a party game, like, I don't know if... I guess Werewolf would still be a party game.
Yeah.
Like, that Werewolf is a fringe, like, almost not a party game, almost just a straight-up board game, because it doesn't have that quick-paced element. The only thing that takes 30 minutes for a party game that I know of, outside of, like, I mean, just rounds-wise, would be the Pokemon drinking game, which would take, like, an hour.
Well, that's because one of us dies during that game.
Yeah.
There's a lot
to
of
wait for the
drinking
ambulance,
involved.
and it's a whole mess.
Never the ambulance, just the charcoal pills.
I'm so bad at drinking games. Somebody gives
you
me
fell asleep on the couch.
I thought
I fell
Steven
asleep
died
behind
behind
the
the ottoman.
Yes, you're right. Behind the couch.
The problem with
Or like
drinking
the
games
futon.
is somebody gives me alcohol and says, all right, you're supposed to drink during these times. And I'm just sitting there drinking like, sure, I'll drink those times and every other time.
But it's in front of me, and I want some now.
It was more of just it's in front of me. Reflex. Glug.
No, I absolutely get that. I mean, yeah, so my 2 recommendation, there's not any real reason I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but there's not really any reason I would.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
That's fair.
So half.
We did also mention that it's $15 on sale on Amazon.
Yes,
times.
I was going to bring that up towards the end, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to mention that because it's $25, but it's on sale a lot.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you buy a bunch of expansions, that's going to add up.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, I found Daybreak at Goodwill, and it wasn't unwrapped.
Lucky.
Yeah, no, it was cheap. Not as cheap as Coup. Coup I got for $3 at Goodwill. This, I think, was $5.
Well, Coup's basically a deck of playing cards.
Yeah.
This is true, but it's still in the board game section.
And cardboard.
Sure.
The tokens, yeah.
I guess.
For the box?
No, the little tokens inside.
Oh, well, okay.
The Muns.
Also, if Ian can be biased against the game and pull a point from it, then I'm going to be biased and put a point towards it, which is why I gave it a 3 for my recommendation. Because it's like, I'm not going to buy it and then shove it down your throat to force you to play it, but I definitely recommend, like, if you like other similar deduction games like this, or if you're interested in just having a fun sort of short game to play with other people that you enjoy playing with, it's definitely sort of one of those fun games.
You ready for Brooke's niche reference of the night?
Yes.
Other than Gregorian chant.
Oh,
This really... Gregorian chant, yes.
I forget that I'm a music nerd sometimes, and I'm like, who doesn't know about Gregorian chant?
So in Catholic school, they do retreats once a year where they sit you around and make you play stupid games with each other for some reason in the name of Christ. It can be the weirdest games. There's one of them that you like sit on each other's laps and try and make someone giggle that you're sitting on their lap. It's a whole thing. This seems like very much... Yes, I'm sorry, honey,
I'm
but I
just
just can't
thinking
smile.
about my traditional image of Catholic school and then sitting on other people's laps.
So it's, honey,
like-
I just can't smile. The whole idea is you sit around and you're just making people uncomfortable. You sit on their laps and you go, honey, I love you, but I just can't smile. And you try and get them to giggle, and if they giggle, they lose.
That sounds very Catholic, actually.
I
that spark a
played
memory?
a very similar game at a Christian summer camp
It's
called Pterodactyl.
There's a common thread I'm seeing here.
Except you had to say the word pterodactyl with your lips curled up
we
to
did
the
that
person
version
next
too.
to you and make them laugh.
Yep.
Yeah.
That we did that too, but for some reason our counselors really loved Honey Can't Smile, whatever you called it. Either way, this seems like a game that we would play there. Like, this is very quick. It's very uncomfortable because you're trying to argue points that you're not even sure of yourself. It sets you off kilter a little bit, which is very much a Catholic school retreat thing, or I guess a Christian camp retreat thing.
Most of my memories of the Silver Lake Conference Center are just running to my bunk and reading The Hobbit. So clearly it didn't stick.
That's fair.
Yeah, getting back
I
to
like
the
those
game,
games.
I like the strategy of it. That knowing when to tell the truth and when to lie, and not knowing if somebody else is telling a truth or a lie. It's fun.
I love the fact that people don't even know if they're lying half the time.
Well, that's why I think that it's good to start by sharing what you know. I happened to get lucky, and I got roles that let me do something every time.
Yeah.
Although it wasn't really luck, because as Brooke pointed out, she specifically selected roles that got to do stuff.
I am a benevolent god.
I can believe that.
Well,
But yeah, replay value. Are we on replay value?
Yes, we
we're
are.
about
I mean,
to be,
yeah,
yeah.
we just hit it.
Oh,
Pretty
my-
much.
You
Yeah.
mentioning it has brought it into reality.
Now you are the
Wonderful.
benevolent god.
it's your podcast now. Good luck.
Please don't. All I've got to say is that I've done a number on my own life, and I wouldn't want your podcast to follow the same fate.
By the way, we need a new recording studio, probably some extra mics. You got the
Oh, we got the
right?
mics, but there's just a lot
Well,
of
I've
them.
got to say, when I kick the bucket, I have a good amount of money left over. Unless I live for a while. Then it will be gone. But replay value. You can literally play this over and over and over again, hardly changing the roles, and it's still fun. Every game is so quick, you can just do it again. It's great. Especially from the party game aspect of it. People can hop in, people can hop out. You don't even have to kick people out to let other people hop in, because you can just accommodate more players. You want some spice? Switch up the roles a bit. It's so easy to keep playing that I give it a 4 for replay value.
Absolutely agree.
Before anyone says that I am biased and not objective, I also gave it a 4 for replay value for the same reason.
Okay.
It's definitely a game that you can play over and over again, and we did. We played it 3 times in a row. There are not a lot of games we've covered on Bards that I can play 3 times in a row and not be exhausted.
Especially
afterwards.
at this time of night after
Yeah.
you doing a full shift.
Yes.
Get a load of this copycat.
Did you also do?
I also gave it a 4. It's just like I said before. We could probably fit like 6 or 7 games over the course of an hour. Very quick.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say on that. It is a fast-paced game. Would I buy this myself? I gave this a 1 of 2. If it were on sale, which it currently, as of this recording at least, I don't know what it'll be like at the end of the month, but it is $15 for a copy on Amazon.
It goes on sale every like 3 months. I gave this a 2, so the best you can get for buying it. Because I did buy it, and then I also bought an expansion. So I obviously thought it was worth it enough to buy an expansion on top of it.
And we say that Ian's biased.
Yeah,
I know,
right.
I know. I'm just calling him out because I am very biased about this game. I find it fun, and it's one of the ones that got me into board games. This is one of my break-in games because I was very late to nerddom in general, but very specifically board games. I was very late to the game because I was an only kid. I didn't have a lot of people come over to my house, so I wasn't playing board games very often.
I gave this a 1 out of 2. It's one of those things where, honestly, I was a little bit unsure of how to rate it here, because most things I look at and say, yeah, that's really cool. And somebody will say, do you want to buy it? And I'm like, no, it costs money. What do you take me for? Someone made of money? I have some money, but spending it? Oh my gosh. But no, this is definitely something where I'm not going to run to the nearest game store and say, take my money, please, and give me this game. But it's definitely something where, no, I would like to own this, and I'll maybe be like, hey, people who buy me Christmas gifts, here's an idea. Because inevitably it's going to happen, and even having a thought of one thing I could say other than, I just want to die, is good.
Yeah. That's a good baseline to have.
The game definitely is stocking stuffer sized.
Yeah. It is. So for the listeners, it's maybe like if you have a tarot deck, it's tarot deck like
it's like 3 by 5 inches or something like that.
Yeah, it's about a postcard size. It's a postcard size and about a thumb thick. But you don't even need the boxes. If you really want to take it apart, you could fit it in like a normal card box because the cards may be thick, but they are normal card sized, even a little smaller.
I agree, Chris. It's more like 4 by 6.
Yeah.
It's a postcard.
Chris is using his thumb to do a more precise measurement because he didn't like the 3 by 5 characterization.
Hey, you would have loved what I did, which is like, it's about the size of my hand.
Well, you do know the meme on the internet. Americans will use anything but the metric system.
Yeah.
Meteor, roughly the size of half a giraffe.
Well, I mean, what percentage of a school bus is it? I need to know.
It's 2 big lighters.
How many blue whales?
By 1.5 big lighters and a half big lighter tall. There
How
we
many
go.
golden labs does it weigh?
You could actually probably use the big lighter as like a generic, because those are always the same height.
Oh, yeah.
So we could probably
I used to use Magic the Gathering cards as my standard of measurement for a very long time for various things.
Oh man, I've taught some students occasionally about how measurement actually began and what standards were. It's like literally a standard was a piece of stone yay long. They just used it over and over again to make sure that everything was consistent.
Yeah, good thing we never did that with our measurement systems. We use feet. Like, oh wait.
Don't forget, if you have a horse, you still measure them in hands.
Yeah.
I was a former horse girl too.
Horrifying.
But yeah, you measure.
Okay, well, as an aside, which is to say, as a getting back onto topic, I also gave it a 2 for Would You Buy. Not because I have bought it, but that I would definitely, since I know that there are so many alternatives and you can probably play the game even without having purchased it between both the app and just finding most of the stuff online, I would definitely just buy it just to support the company and the people who make the game. Just because, I mean, it's fun and it's just raw fun.
One of the things that I would like to point out here, and this might be restating what Brooke has already said, and I apologize if it is.
It's all good.
But as somebody who has a certain degree of social anxiety, I love this. I love it when I can have something and walk into a social gathering and go, I don't have to chat about useless things. I can just start playing games and then nobody will look at me standing awkwardly.
Yep.
And
it gives you an icebreaker to be like, hey, do you want to not stand there awkwardly? Come over here and sit awkwardly while we play a game.
The best alternative.
Yes. At least you're doing something then.
Mm-hmm.
I get that games aren't for everybody, however.
Yeah.
I just don't associate with those people.
So I think we're about ready to wrap up.
Yeah.
So going into final scores, I gave this a 31 out of 42.
I love this game, and somehow I got a 32 out of 42, so we're very close.
Objective.
This thing really sets me back from just giving everything a 42. You did a good job making this.
You made this.
I made this variant, but you did start the actual, you were the one that did the basic rubric.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I gave it a 33.
Okay.
I just come onto the podcast to give high scores. I give it a 37.
I was hoping for 34. We'd have a straight.
No,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Darn, we don't win podcasting now.
I tend to be somewhat words. I don't give 4s very easily, so I'll just say that.
I just liked it a lot because it reminded me of all the games that I like a lot. So 4s just came running through the woodwork.
Thank you, everyone, for listening into the episode. If you've enjoyed this and want to hear more, you can find our content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. You can follow us on X at Dance with Bards, on Blue Sky at Dance with Bards at bluesky.social, on Mastodon at dancewithbards at crater.gg, or look us up on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/withbards. And if someone like, say, Robert Evans wanted to send us a cease and desist for my podcast intro, you can email us at dancewithbards@gmail.com. I look forward to getting your signature, Robert. Please just interact with us online. We like to hear from all of you guys.
Oh, yeah.
And thank you for listening. And we're looking forward to our 2-year anniversary this October.
2 years. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't feel like it.
Why? Does it feel like 1 or 3? It depends on the day.
You don't want an answer to that question, I take it.
Also, please join us on Discord, though. We've already started some community events over the summer. We had our camping with Bards, and we've been talking about maybe doing a little winter funsy thing, too.
Pretty much every social I just mentioned has a link to our link tree, which has a spot for Discord if there's not a Discord link already in the profile. I don't post it on the Discord server thing because you get all kinds of spam doing that, and it's not worth the effort. I don't have time to moderate a server that's public like that. But yeah, join up, or you're welcome to.
He go,
All right.
we go.
Awoo!
That's not the outro.
Happy Halloween.
Enjoy your October, everyone.
Yeah. See you next time.